Hello, everybody. This is Bruce from Oregon. It's the Bruce from Oregon Show. It's another Tuesday. This is episode 0. It might be the first, it might be the last. Only our guest cat, Goofy Poofball. What is it, Goofy or Gooby? Oh my goodness, guys. What's going on? Poofball has a kitten who has a ball of yarn, so that's pretty cute. So today, in the Management Best Practices series that we're doing, we're up to like 15 or 16 videos. This is getting intense. I could write a book. Maybe I should write a book. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you would buy my ebook. Oh boy. Send me a best wishes e-card and yahoo.com if you, anyway, what am I doing? I digress. Today we're going to talk about retrospectives and post-mortems. What is the difference? When would you want to do one versus the other? And at the end, why I recommend one more than the other. Okay, let's get into it. Let's go look at some definitions, shall we? Okay, so what is a post-mortem when it comes to business, management, running a team, doing a project? Okay, so the definition here is, it's pretty morbid. Done, occurring, or collected after death. And I think in the context of a project or business, we're talking about after the project is over. So not necessarily death, at least hopefully not for us or our project, but hopefully after a successful project is completed. Now, the most applicable definition here is following the event. This is the one that is useful for us. So, you know, where I worked for a very long time, what would happen a lot of the times is a project would end, and then a bunch of upper-level managers would make these demands that mid-level managers or team leads or direct reports or project managers get together and make a bunch of PowerPoint to do what they would call a post-mortem of the project. So basically like what went well, what didn't go well. And when you're basically summarizing the following the event, okay, after the entire project, what would eventually happen on all of these post-mortems is that different program managers would try to present their view of history, right? Because what is it they say? History is always written by the victors of a battle. Well, when you're doing a project, history is going to be written by the victors of the project. So what ends up happening is you'll get different people making PowerPoint for these postmortems that are sort of presenting their side. And you know, sometimes what they'll do is they'll throw another team under the bus, and they may do this on purpose. They may be doing this subconsciously. They may not even know they're doing it, okay? They may not have any ill intentions, but they may present a skewed view of the project that makes them look good and makes everybody else look bad. So I'm not a big fan of postmortems because what you're really doing here is you're waiting until everything's over. And then you're looking back and you're saying, what went well, what didn't go well? And it's really about looking at, you know, as these definitions down here talk about, an examination of a dead body to determine the cause of death. Everybody's trying to play the blame game. Everybody's pointing fingers. Everybody's giving their conclusionary statements, okay, and trying to write some PowerPoint to basically make their case or make their opinions. And there may be more or less accurate factual litigation that goes along with these claims. They may just say like, well, you know, here's one problem. We had too many bug reports filed by a certain team that weren't really bugs or something. You know, they may just like throw some shade at another team. And it's like, well, you know, where's the process that was either supposed to make that happen or not happen? What happened to the process? And if you get too much into the blame, you lose sight of the process. Now, what I prefer, okay, is what we're going to call a retrospective. So what's the difference here? Let's go to the definitions. In a retrospective, what you're doing is you're looking back on or dealing with past events or situations. And I think the key here is dealing with. Okay, so what we want to do here, and then of course, retrospective could be like, there's these alternate definitions where you're looking at, you know, George Oakey's paintings over time or things like that. But, and I mean, that's fine. It's analogous. But What we're talking about in terms of management is doing a retrospective. And the way I would look at these, and we'll see I pulled up some articles from the internet that are going to try and define these and differentiate them, and we'll see how good they do. My personal take is that a postmortem is really tops down, and it's managers trying to say, tell me how the project went, because they're so, making these high level decisions. They want to take a moment after the project is done to get a little bit more down in the weeds and understand what happened, understand what the problems were, and almost like, blame people, who's going to get fired if something went wrong in the project. And it puts the lower levels of management and the individual contributors on a much more defensive stance. Okay. This is why I don't like postmortems. Whereas I feel like retrospectives, the way we can frame this, if we want them to be useful, is we can put a retrospective in place where team leads, individual contributors, and first level managers can do retrospectives. And you don't have to do it. Note here, they're just saying something taking effect from a date in the past. You don't have to wait till the end. You don't have to wait for the corpse, okay? You can do these looking at the past. And in a lot of technical work, there are these things like agile processes and scrums and things like this. There's quarterly objectives. You could do this every quarter. You could do a retrospective. You don't have to wait till the end of the project. You can work with direct individual contributors and first level managers and retrospectively look at how the project is going over time and then give that information upwards proactively, as opposed to waiting for the end of the project and then waiting for some vice president to say, give me a bunch of PowerPoint and then have them nitpick the PowerPoint. That's really useless. What we want to do instead is on a regular basis over time, retrospectively look at how the project is going or has gone, and then let the engineers or the individual contributors decide how to make the next quarter or the next project or the next scrum be better with their own process definitions. Okay, so we don't want to sit here and wait till the end of a giant project and then let managers figure out who caused all the problems and then go fire them. This is not going to instill a new process or new methodologies or new flowcharts, methods and operations into the system. The only way we're going to get really good new methods into the system, change the flows, change the roles and responsibilities, change the receivables and deliverables, is by first level managers talking to the individual contributors doing the work and figuring out how those processes need to change. And then once we think we have a good idea, then you go tell upper level management what you are going to do as a retrospective. Okay, don't wait for a post-mortem to examine a dead body. Go make things better now by using a retrospective approach to the ongoing project. That's my advice. Let's look at these articles now on how they define these things, because I think they're a little less harsh on the concept of a post-mortem than I am. However, I've spent over 26 years in corporate America dealing with post-mortems, and I think they're actually kind of harmful. And I'll give an example at the end of one that I thought was really just a little off the rails. In any case, here's one of the articles I found, and you can just go Google terms like post-mortem versus retrospective, or should I use a post-mortem or should I use a retrospective? And you'll get these different blogs, and you'll get people trying to sell products and things like that, and the blogs may be associated with those. You can decide whether you trust them or not. I'm not here to tell you one of these blogs is any better than the other. I'm just looking for some examples we can talk about today. Okay, so what's the difference between a project post-mortem and a retrospective? This is written by Benjamin Cottrell back in August 9th, 2022. That's fine. Okay, so I like these icons. They got the angry post-mortem and they got the angry calendar retro. Everybody's angry. Why do we have to be angry, guys? Can't we be, let's just be happy. I don't know. Continuous improvement is a state of mind. Okay, that's fine. And it starts when learning from the past, and it starts when learning from the past has become a habit. Oh, okay. So they're saying you have to develop a habit of learning from the past. And my take is that habits, it takes many weeks of doing something in a repeated fashion for it to become a habit. So, for example, if you wait to the end of a 5-year project and managers are like, write me a postmortem PowerPoint, you can be like, I don't know. Do I have to do this? I don't like doing this. I've never done this before. That's not a habit. What you want to do is retrospectively look with your team. Like I said, maybe it's every quarter, maybe it's every month. You're building habits here over time during your career. The end of a project or the resolution of an incident, oh boy, we've got an incident, fire the alarm, are good times to start improving as a team. By using techniques like retrospectives or postmortems, you can reflect on past events. Okay, that's good. Share learnings. Learnings are good. Improve your team's processes. And this is the most important one because when I have seen postmortems, the number one thing I see that never happens after the postmortem is an improved process. I see a lot of people, they'll say, "Oh, we did really great on XYZ." And a lot of people say, "Oh, that's great, golf clap." "Oh, we really, something horrible happened over here." And people say, "Oh, why did this happen?" "Oh, it happened because we didn't have enough XYZ over here. We didn't have enough ABC happening over there." And then we just do the same project over again, or they hire new managers. People come and go. Team assignments change. People move on to doing different things. And sometimes you get improvement, okay? I'm not saying there's never any improvement. I'm just saying, in my point of view, the improvement comes bottoms up. It does not come tops down, okay? That's my take. Is it a hot take? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Then by taking action regularly, you will trigger a loop of continuous improvement with your team. Yeah, the regular action has to be something that has to happen. The other thing I'll say about habits, not just that it takes a certain amount of time of doing something over and over again before it becomes a habit. Like with exercise, right? They say if you exercise once or twice a week, you got to do that for a month or two before it becomes a habit. If you can't do it for a month or two, or maybe even 3 months, it won't become a habit. The other thing about habits is if you attach the habit or the action to another one, then you are more likely to make it happen. So, for example, if there's something you already need to do as a manager, maybe there's some paperwork, maybe there's some team deliverables you have to do, fill out a spreadsheet, fill out a form online, and you have to do it every quarter, tie your retrospective to that. Tie your new habits to the thing you already do. Just tack it on. Because if it's valuable enough, you can add it to a process you already have and already do. You're more likely to successfully do it over time. So that's my other piece of advice there. Okay. And then they say in this article, we're going to answer these questions. That's fine. What's a team retrospective? A retrospective is an opportunity for a team to reflect and learn from the past in a structured meeting. Okay. Again, what I would say here is if you're going to do a retrospective, do it with a small number of people that actually did the work. What I've seen happen in a lot of postmortems is they bring the managers in, and they might bring the team leads in, but they bring a lot of managers in, and they don't bring in a lot of people who actually did the work. And so it's heavily, heavily weighted towards a whole ton of managers. And then the managers argue with each other about stuff that's like one level, it's like the telephone game. It's like one level removed. I don't know about the utility. When you do a retrospective, get the people that are really, really doing the work every single day and get them to get management to help them do things in a way they want to do it that's better, okay? The main objective is to inspect the situation and adapt to reality. Adapt to reality, exactly. I was in a situation once where we had to sort of write these status PowerPoints for these biweekly meetings or something. And the problem was the real engineers doing the work were running ahead of the status reports. So by the time you got to the meeting, you had a bunch of managers looking at a status report that was already out of date and arguing about like, well, I heard in this email that this other thing isn't true anymore, or, and they would waste their time nitpicking these old PowerPoints that were already out of date. Is there a better way to do this process where you're doing a biweekly status report where you can let the engineers do the work, but not be dismayed by a bunch of managers looking at a snapshot of the work from 2 weeks ago? how do we adapt to the reality of this situation? That's the problem that has to get solved. And there's ways to solve that I don't want to get into here, but you can. But you first have to get into this opportunity for the team to tell you about these things so you understand what's going on, so you understand reality. And I think that's the best thing a retrospective can do is it can get everybody on the same page with reality. Simply put, team members discuss what happened during the last project, sprint, or iteration. And if you don't know what a sprint is, I think it's kind of like a set amount of time, like maybe it's 2 weeks, where you say, hey, here's 4 people, 5 people on a team. This is what we're going to do in the next 2 weeks. This is what we want to accomplish. And if you run into issues, people can load balance or help each other out or give each other tips and tricks on how to get that work done in that short period of time so it's more effective. Okay. Or you could call that an iteration, whatever you want to do. Then we prioritize key aspects on which the team could get better. I mean, okay. And it's, the manager's job to help employees prioritize their work, of course. Finally, the team members shape an action plan to tackle how they can make a difference concretely. And I think the important thing here is the team members need to create the action plan. Okay, not a bunch of upper level managers, handing down chiseled stone tablets from the vice president's suite or something. Okay, team members need to do this. Discussions in a retrospective are based on qualitative data, feedback from team members. I mean, you could have, I don't know why it's only, you could have quantitative data. You don't need to ignore it. I don't know why they say that. Of course, there are many ways to reflect on the past. The most common way is to ask these 3 questions. What went well? What didn't go so well? And how can we improve? And I think, these structured things, I think individual contributors, humans are smart. I think you could almost, if you're doing this on a very regular basis, and if you're a manager talking to your employees, you're going to be going over these things what's going well and what's not going well anyway. I think what's more interesting is to say, in the future, when we have a chance to pivot, when we have a chance to change a process, change a flow chart, change roles and responsibilities, when should we do that and how should we do it? And that's really the key. And then go do it. Actually do it in a measurable way, okay? Not just hey, we're going to put together a task force to go improve everything. And then the task force meets once and they never meet again. You don't want to do that. You want to have a measurable objective that you can implement with your team that obeys reality. It doesn't try to violate the laws of physics. And you can improve and measure improvement over time, okay? One of the main ways you as a manager can build trust in an organization, whether you're a first level manager, second level manager, higher level manager, is measuring things over time and telling your team what you're measuring. If you merely do this, you will be doing better than 95% of managers I've worked with in my life. Okay? Because a lot of managers and upper level managers and so-called leaders, bosses, whatever you want to call them, they will go say, hey, I know what went well. I know what didn't go well. We're going to do better on the next project. And they talk a good game, but they don't go measure continuous improvement and explain it to the employees in a way the employees can verify independently and have trust in that manager. Simply doing some sort of measurement or improvement, and even if it's qualitative, like some way of showing to the employees that you're doing something over time on a regular basis, whether it's quarterly or annually, will go a huge distance for developing trust with those employees, okay? As opposed to a bunch of managers saying, give me the post-mortem PowerPoint, and then you're like, okay, I made the PowerPoint, now what? I guess it's back to business as usual. No trust. Okay, you don't have to repeat these questions at every single meeting. And I think that's what I just said. If you're looking for a neat and straightforward template, okay, you can buy their template or whatever you want to do. What is a project post-mortem? Okay, so we got the retrospective side down. Post-mortem is a meeting where the people involved review the success or failure of a project. Okay, wow, that's pretty binary. I mean, different things in a project will be successful, different things will be not as successful. It's not binary. There's going to be gray areas. The goal is to discover ways to implement better processes for your next project. And that would be a good goal if that ever happened. One thing I hardly ever see out of these postmortems is people saying, what is the current process? Let's put it on the screen with a flow chart or a list or an Excel spreadsheet or something that shows what the process was. And then, okay, how do we want to change it? Okay, so what's the old version? What's the new version? Let's look at it on the screen. A lot of times these things are like PowerPoints of people making claims or people showing some data and then trying to make a claim that correlates to that data, but maybe doesn't have a lot of proof of causality. I don't know, or a lot of speculation. And I would much rather see ways to implement better processes in a postmortem. Now, I think in general, we should just abandon the postmortem terminology. Just get rid of it because it's just so like in general, we're talking about something's dead. Like, why does anything have to be dead? It's just such a negative term. We don't have to be negative. We could just say retrospective. And if you want to have a management retrospective, you can have a management process retrospective. If you want to have an engineering retrospective or an individual contributor retrospective, you could do one of those. Okay. You could have different types of retrospectives. We could just jettison this postmortem terminology out of the airlock, in my opinion. These questions are quite similar to those of a team retrospective. For example, what worked well, what went wrong? And of course, okay, how can we improve? I mean, we need to implement the better processes. Not just how do we implement the better processes, but let's actually do the work. One problem I have with some of these type of management meetings is there's a lot of meetings where people go and they'll complain about something. They'll say, this went wrong, that went wrong. I couldn't do this because of X. I couldn't do that because of Y. You know, something did go well. I never go to these meetings and see work happen. I never go to these meetings and see someone say, here's our flow chart for this process. What are we going to do on the next project to make the flow chart better? Tell me how to change the chart on the fly. Here's a list of things we need to do in an Excel spreadsheet. Help me make this list better. Or let's actually do some of the things in the list in the meeting. I go to a lot of meetings where people do these things. What worked well, what went wrong? And then nothing else happens. The work never happens. I want to go to a meeting and work. Okay, that's my major thing. Discussions in a postmortem are based on quantitative data. Okay, so they're basically saying like, oh, retrospectives are more qualitative and postmortems are more quantitative. I kind of disagree. I think you could do quantitative and qualitative, and you could do these in either sense, whether you're doing it tops down or whether you're doing it bottoms up. Okay, because let's be real. Individual contributors are the people that are doing the real work. The first level managers, they are going to be the people with the absolute best, most detailed, they call it KPIs. These are key performance indicators. Any metric, a statistic, okay? Cost data, whatever it is, money, time, financials, whatever it is, lines of code in a piece of software, weeks that a project might take, bug reports, how many bugs are there. The people at the lowest level are going to have the most detailed metrics. And then as you go up, those metrics are going to get telephone gamed into simpler and simpler metrics that just obfuscate the real issues or the real opportunities for improvement. Okay. Postmortems are also called project retrospectives. I mean, let's just call them project retrospectives then. Okay, let's just jettison this goofy terminology. You can use a retrospective template. Okay, which one should I choose? The first step is to determine the intention behind the meeting, the why. And I think this is always good. Always have a good agenda for your meeting. If a problem has arisen or a project has just ended, a postmortem will be well suited to understand what happened. Okay, and you could call this a project retrospective. You could call this a management retrospective. That would be kind of fine. I mean, the problem here is this is just going to devolve into finger pointing and the blame game, and you may not really answer the questions you want to answer if you do this two tops down, in my opinion. If your goal is to what? Foster continuous team improvement, then do a team retrospective. And I think this is always going to be way more valuable. This non-tops down, bottoms up. Team retrospective. This is going to be the most valuable thing you can do. The tops down thing, I guess it's okay. But what I would want to see tops down, what would make me happy is to see the tops down be here's the process for how the lower level managers or the first level managers or the individual contributors, when and how should they do team retrospectives? Because then I want to see the output of that filter back up to me. I want my subordinate teams to do something that's good for them. You guys go do a team retrospective and then tell me what you think I need to know out of that, as opposed to me ordering people to give me a post-mortem as an upper level manager. That is what I would prefer to see happen here. Okay. Ask yourself what you want to get out of the meeting. That's fine. Who is requesting the meeting? Who's going to attend? Okay. And again, I've talked about if you have a room full of managers and not a room full of people doing the actual work, good luck. I don't know. I just don't know how useful that's going to be. Okay. How do I do a project retrospective with my team? I mean, come on. Do you break the ice? I don't know. This is a little cheesy, I think. This is getting a little too cheesy for me. Let's go to the next article. This is from a place called easyretro.io. I don't know how I found this. What the heck is this, guys? This is from October 2021. Somebody deep in the pandemic was figuring out how to write this article, I guess, because they had some time on their hands. Post-mortems versus retrospective. What's the difference? Oh my gosh, we got a scalpel. We're dissecting the corpse. Oh boy. The end of a project is always everyone's favorite part. The hard work has paid off and the team can enjoy a well-deserved break. Oh my gosh, guys. You know, at the end of a project, this is a pet peeve of mine. I'm going to digress a little bit because, you know, we're doing a video here. It's going to be a long one. I was like, this is going to be a 5-minute video and we're at 26 minutes. But anyway, hopefully this is entertaining. You put this on while you mow your lawn or something. I don't know. Maybe the lawnmower is too loud. But isn't it funny when like you hit a milestone and some upper level manager you've never heard of in your life sends out some email saying, "Congrats on hitting this milestone, team." Now, of course, there's tons of work still in front of us or, you know, for the next phase of the project. So let's all get back to work. And you're always like, who is this person? Why are they sending this email? Like, I feel like the amount you probably really contributed to the project is inversely proportional to the number of those emails you sent out. Anyway, the hard work has paid off. The team can enjoy a well-deserved break, but don't take a break too long because we have to get on to the next phase of the project. Oh boy, back to work. That said, there's a lot you can learn from the last project or sprint you have completed. The question is, what's the best way to assess your team's work and learn from it? Exactly. Okay. Post-mortems versus retrospectives. Let's try to figure this out. Timing. So they are differentiating based on timing. They're saying the post-mortem takes place once the entire project is complete. Okay. Retrospectives are more frequent. And I would argue, you know, you could do a retrospective with a retrospective mindset, a bottoms-up mindset, an engineering-first mindset, a process improvement mindset, as opposed to a management blame game mindset once at the end of the project. Okay, so I think this timing thing is a little bit of a red herring, but if it helps you, that's good. And actually, you know, looking at things on a more frequent basis can be good if the overhead isn't too high for your team. All right, focus. Focus is where postmortems and retrospectives tend to cross over. Both highlight what went well, what went wrong, and what can be improved. And again, the pitfall I'm going to keep pointing out here, guys, is a lot of times I see people focus on what went well and what went wrong, and then they sort of give token service to what can be improved. Or maybe they say, here's my idea for what can be improved, and then it never happens. I think you need to spend like 10x the time on what can be improved and improving it, okay? So spend 90% of your time on this third one and 10% of your time on these first two. That's my advice. Okay, who participates? Again, as retrospectives are a regular smaller scale event, they only need the core development team to participate, right? You want to focus on the people who will be changing a process that is the process that they follow. Okay, they are going to be the people that can change it for the better, not somebody who sees it once a project and says, well, you know, okay, here's a project some team does. I'm going to throw some darts at it and make a few hot takes, and then I've done my job as an upper level manager. That's not as useful from my point of view. Okay, and then what happens after? If we're honest, the outcome of a postmortem and a retrospective will be pretty similar. Okay, I mean, in a perfect world, okay, these guys are writing these blogs from a perfect world. I work in the real world where we actually go and things happen. Um, by the end of the meeting, you'll have a list of successes, failures, and failures you need to act on in the future. I mean, maybe. Sometimes, maybe something went well and you want to make it better, even though it went well. So I think this is a little simplistic, okay? What you really want to do is figure out the engineers have had an experience, okay? And I'm gonna use it could be individual contributors in any job domain. They could be doing anything. I'm just saying engineers because I've worked with engineers. They will have an experience, a personal experience. They will know what could be better, even if it worked. They will know what can be better, even if it didn't work. They will know if there's no way to fix something that didn't work. Okay. Figuring out the bounds of physics from your real individual contributors, your real employees, your real engineers, that is super valuable because I've been to so many postmortems where engineers are like, oh, yeah, let me give you the example from my real life and then we can be done because I think this video is really long. Um, I was in what was sort of a postmortem once where basically the project early on, when the project defined itself, it made a trade off. Okay. And you'll find this as a manager everything's a trade off. There's always trade offs. Nothing's a perfect good decision. You're always trading something off for something else. And what you want to do is always be consciously aware of what you have traded off. A lot of people will try to make a trade off and then ignore the thing that they have traded off, the negative, the risk, the potential risk, or the guaranteed risk. And in this project, there was a trade off made to minimize the schedule. Okay, so we said we're not going to do XYZ because we want to minimize the schedule. And if we don't minimize the schedule, the project doesn't make sense. And that's fair as long as you're honest about what you have traded off. So I got to this postmortem and people were talking about comparing this project to a different project. So they brought somebody in, like a peer of mine from the other project, to explain how the other project worked. And there were a lot of managers in there. And I think the managers were listening to sort of the project managers argue with each other about, the finger pointing. I can speak. The finger pointing and the blame games and all this jazz. And me and the other technical manager or the technical lead from the other project, we're just looking at the data. Like, what's the schedule here? When do you actually know you're getting something done? And there was one senior technical lead in the meeting who I thought figured out. Like, I saw the light bulb come on. Okay. And I don't know if there's any, but what we did was we discovered the bounds of physics. Okay. So the other projects said we were able to do XYZ, but it took, I'm making something up. It took 4 quarters of time to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to get out of the forest. We were lost in the forest for 4 quarters, and then suddenly everything came together and we were able to accomplish ABC. The other project, their schedule for that type of work was 1 quarter or less. So if you're not going to get out of the forest in less than 4 quarters, what are you hoping to accomplish? You are basically making a trade-off saying, I need to get everything else done, XYZ, PDQ. We have to jettison this other stuff. You're never going to do it in 1 quarter. The laws of physics are just not on our side. And I think there was one technical person in the meeting who had the light bulb come on and they kind of figured that out. And it's not like we decided what we needed to act on in the future. I think what we learned was, you have to keep these trade-offs in mind consciously from the start all the way through. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a postmortem saying, why did this go wrong? And what can we do about it in the future? Well, nothing went wrong because we made a conscious trade-off decision. You just forgot about it. So maybe the answer in that case is really we need to do a better job of documentation or risk management or something like that. Documentation and keeping those things in mind, as opposed to trying to have this glass half full, You'll see this a lot. Middle management will want to have this glass half full point of view that they can present to the really super upper level management. Like everything's going great. Meanwhile, the first level managers are always like this glass half empty view of like, oh man, my team needs more money. My team needs more time. My team has too many bugs. My team has too many problems. And you have to have a good process to facilitate how the interplay between the glass half full and the glass half empty is going to happen. And if that is coming to a head and the only place it's being reconciled is in a post-mortem, you're in big trouble. So my advice is to do a retrospective and let the engineers continuously make themselves more effective over time, and then bubble that information on up so that you get both the glass half full and the glass half empty without waiting for the very end to try and figure out which of these two things is actually true, which of these two things actually comports with the laws of physics and the reality of what is happening in your project. Okay, and again, a retrospective, we're going to look back, deal with past events and situations, and do better next time. And that's all we can ask as first level managers, guys. All right, my name is Bruce Morgan. This has been the Bruce Morgan Show. If you've stuck around this long, thank you so much. I will talk to you all next time. Take it easy. If you have any comments, put them in the comments section. If you want to buy me a coffee, the link's in the description. Have a great time, guys. Talk to you later.